IVM.
She serves a lot of aces, wins matches, and smashes strokes across the net. She got up post an injury and returned to the court without a fret. She owns her racket and knows her game damn well. Hitting the shuttlecock, she's smashing patriarchy, you can clearly tell. This athlete survived an injury, reinvented her game, and many victories she's had. Gear up for a rally conversation with the Indian Badminton Player, Tanvi Lad. Hello and welcome to Beyond Cliché. This is your host and host Al, and today on the show I actually have an athlete, an Indian Badminton Player who's currently playing singles. She's also a fellow podcaster, so you can imagine this is going to be quite a conversation. She's got a podcast called the Millennial Athlete. Please do look it up on the IVM podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Today in this conversation, we're going to smash a lot of patriarchy across the net. I have with me in the studio Tanvi Lad, and we're going to have a conversation on women athletes and women in the badminton playing system. Before we sort of have a conversation with her, for the listeners who've joined in, just to let you know, I have a campaign on change.org. I'm a change maker, and I'm asking a leading diaper company to include the father's image on the wrapper. If you resonate with the cause, you want a narrative changed with equal parenting, please go to www.change.org/papapampers2. I'm going to be in conversation with Tanvi Lad right after the short break.
पेश खिदमत है आपकी शान में हमारे अंजुमन से. Hi, I am Sadaf.
And I'm Arshid. खाने का इतिहास, economics, policy, psychology, सब है मेन्यू पे.
Only on the Naan Curry podcast every Wednesday, सिर्फ IVM podcast ऐप या वेबसाइट पर या फिर जहां से भी आप अपने पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Cliché. This is Almas, and today in the studio I have someone who was ranked 49 in the world rankings and was the third best ranked women's singles player from India. I'm talking about badminton. And this woman was actually a member of the Indian team that created history in 2014 at the Asian Games and Uber Cup in 2014 and 2016. And she actually was a part of the team that won the bronze medal. I'm excited to have a conversation around this because when it comes to girls, we usually give them footwear which restricts their movement right at an early age. You must have seen that boys have running shoes, but girls actually end up with heels. So today we're going to explore what is the journey of an athlete, what really makes a woman athlete. So Tanvi is going to talk to us about her journey. And hi, Tanvi, how are you doing?
Hi, Al. I'm doing great. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction. I'm known as Tanvi, the Indian badminton player, but there's so much that goes into the making of an athlete, especially being a girl from a very young age, like you rightly mentioned. It's you're taught you need to do the right things. Girls are not so many girls get into sport early on, especially when you're in school. You take up dancing, you take up maybe dramatics or painting. Those are the hobbies that girls usually take to. But I was as a kid, full of energy, and it needed to be channelized, like my mom says.
Okay.
So I was always one sport to the others. Come summer holidays, and it was either swimming and then badminton and then tennis. And so I was always used to, the rough and tough kind of activities. I used to be cycling, grazed knees. That's typically how my childhood was. But, one thing led to another, and I started playing badminton. One thing led to another. It was a journey from the school level to district level to state level. Then you start competing all India, and then you start playing for the country. So it was a step-by-step process. But yes, at each stage you have to break stereotypes, do things that otherwise guys So, I mean, yeah, and most of the people I was training with, my teammates were all guys, always. So it was always me competing against them, whether it was on court or in the gym or on the running track. It was always like an ego issue for me to match up to their pace and keep. So it was good in a way because I kept challenging myself, and when I would actually compete with the girls, it was a lot easier because I was used to training and fighting against the boys. And it also developed that grit and determination that very often is very male stereotypical. That kind of just got honed.
Right. So Tanvi is really going down memory lane as she's recalling her entire journey. So Tanvi, we're going to talk about where it actually started. And you said you were this bundle of energy, like your mom said, and you were channelizing it in various forms of sports.
Yeah.
कभी सोचा था कि मतलब badminton as a career pursue करेंगे? When did it actually happen to you, yeah?
So, as usual, I mean, being a girl, I had to be diligent and diligent about my schooling. I mean, my education as well. So I was very, very particular about my grades not dropping, and I always had to be first in class, and put that kind of pressure on myself as well. And I was also training twice a day or thrice a day. So it was like this regimented existence back in school. And then typically when you're in the 9th or the 10th, when these conversations start at home that, do you want to actually take up the sport professionally, or you're good at science, or you're good at, something that you want to pursue the academic route.
Right.
So those conversations start. It was a very difficult call for me because, I had been balancing, doing the balancing act all along, and that had, just gotten into my system. I couldn't choose one way or the other.
But which one did you enjoy, if I may ask?
I actually enjoyed the balancing act. I one kind of gives you that buffer, so you refocus when you're on, one challenges your body, one challenges your mind, so it's goes hand in hand, and that's something. So but eventually, yes, once I won the junior nationals, I realized, yes, I think let's give this a shot. Let's do something out of the box. I mean, everyone, you get to be an athlete for X number of years. You can always come back to education later on. So I did take call of moving to the national center. I'm originally from Mumbai and moved to Hyderabad for about 4.5 years, and that was like military training. It's 7-8 hours of just badminton. You're living on the first floor, and your courts are down. So it's like this cutthroat environment where you're just eating, drinking, sleeping the sport. But yeah, that's basically when I decided to go whole hog into the sport, and I did eventually come back to completing my master's. As soon as I got out of the national center, I wanted to go back to the balancing act, which is what I believed my winning formula was, and it did help me.
So, Tanvi, you're at a juncture where you've decided to pack your bags and go to this center, which is hardcore military training, like you said, What was really happening to you within? Also, how are people around you reacting to a decision like that?
So, Al, interestingly, my co-host and I were chatting about this on an episode of the Millennial Athlete the other day. So, when an athlete decides to pursue the sport, whole hog or professionally, there's a lot of skepticism around the decision. Parents, first of all, usually you come from a family where you're the first, no one's really done sport professionally. Very few athletes, like say PV Sindhu, whose parents also were national level volleyball players. So then, your parents kind of know, how to guide. So
you didn't have a background like that at all?
No, absolutely not. I come from a family of professionals. Everyone's, a qualified professional. So sport was something totally new, totally out of the box. So no one really knew, what to say, how to guide me. But they were absolutely supportive. I mean, if you want to pursue something that you're passionate about and you're good at, then by all means, go ahead. So that was the general, I would say, in terms of support. I had all the family support. I had everyone's good wishes, and you're used to that bubble, that cocoon when you're back home, and I lived quite a sheltered life back in Mumbai. And then, suddenly, you're leaving family, you're on your own, you're in a cutthroat kind of environment. So it's not easy mentally at all, because you're living with your competitors. It's an individual sport, so there's always competition. There's
Absolutely.
always So there's a lot that you have to deal with, but you kind of grow up and you kind of mature early on, because you have to deal with hard life situations on court and even in that training environment very early on. So around 15,
Absolutely.
16, you're dealing with those issues, and you kind of grow up and you kind of, when your friends back home probably are, socializing and doing the typical teenage things, you are actually adulting very early on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of female friends back in the center? What was the ratio of men versus women?
So we did definitely have a good crop of women singles players, and even women doubles players for that matter. So the women's team and men's team would train at separate times. But I would say we had a good crop. I mean, obviously taking cue from what Saina Nehwal had achieved, she kind of, set the path for all of us. And there was, the level at which India is today in terms of the sport. It's like a factory.
And why would you say it's a factory?
So the system just supports volumes of players to be churned out. The level is so good, and you're constantly sparring and constantly competing, that we do somewhere play a numbers game. So, it's not like the European countries where you have 2 and 3 players and you're focused, there's individualized, personalized attention on those few players. It's not like that. It's more of a volume game. You have so many young girls who believe they can achieve what Saina has achieved or what Sindhu has achieved, and they all want to train. They're all at a level. They've all been picked up from national level tournaments. They're now at the national center, and they're training against each other every day. So, you are bound to get results.
Absolutely.
Someone is traveling, someone is going to get you the results.
When I was doing my research for this show, I realized that the sport is a perfect fit for my show, because clearly there are so many women. Like you said, the precedent has been set by some of the senior players and also by you. And a lot of girls are now looking forward to join this sport.
Yeah.
When we talk about sports, the common cliche that actually comes to my mind is this term, sportsman spirit. So there's a man there, and we talk about sportsmen because primarily sports has been dominated by, if you look at the history of any sport for that matter, and I think that also kind of stems from the fact that this whole orientation of achievement and competition is so drilled into the psyche of a male child that it invariably has now become a lingo. So, talking about the lingo, I'm sure that there is a lot that happens on, at the court, in the situation when you're playing with the audience around you. So what is the situation with badminton? How is the scenario different for men and women? I've read somewhere that there is equal pay, but what about the other situations there?
So, like you rightly mentioned, I think, the whole, everything about sport in general, the physicality or the aggression or, sweating it out, putting in the hard hours, it's associated with a lot of masculinity. I mean, there is a masculine stereotype to it. So, that's pretty much what we've all had to battle, that girls can get into the gym and lift. Of course, you can't compare the speed and sheer power because, you're comparing apples and oranges and it doesn't work like that. But having said that, it's wrong to say that a girl can't, run as fast or lift as heavy because, we have girls breaking these stereotypes every day.
Yeah.
So, as far as badminton goes, I think the pay-wise or prize money-wise, right now it's pretty much equal. But yes, I would say you are always considered. So we were on another episode of the Millennial Athlete, which will be released soon. We were chatting with Deepa Karmarkar, and she happened to mention that she had a foreign coach who came in to train them at the national camp. And one of the first things he said was, you girls can train. I mean, you girls can train, but how far are you going to get? You're ultimately going to end up in the kitchen. So let me first focus on the guys. And he said that was such a debilitating statement to hear from a foreign coach, that too. It sets you back mentally. But I think girls today and especially sportswomen today are a bit rebellious. The moment you say we can't do something, it gives us that added incentive to
push. It's like a fuel that pushes us forward.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that's, yeah.
So did you also get some of these statements, or did you have to face some of this misogyny back on the court or elsewhere when you say that, women are actually told ki kya karna hai, ultimately you have to go to the kitchen?
So I wouldn't say it was very direct, but to be honest, there was always an underlying, like an undercurrent, that probably, like, for instance, if there was a preferred training time for sessions, it would be given to the men singles guys, and we would probably have to train at an odd time, just to once they're done or before so we would sometimes start at like 4 a.m. and they would start at 7, which
Why so? This is intriguing.
I mean, you have to accommodate the sheer volume of players at the end of the day, and there are juniors, there are seniors, there's doubles, singles, there's a whole bunch. So somebody has to accommodate somebody. So but unfortunately it was the girls who had to.
Somebody here is are the girls that are actually accommodating.
And I don't know if it was coincidence or what, but it's a fact that we did have to. Or if it was training and it was running sessions at 12 noon on the track with a blazing sun overhead, it was very often the girls who were doing that at that time. And then of course there was a fear that, you're getting sunburnt and you're going to look ridiculous, and you're not going to be an athlete for life. You need to have a good complexion, and you can't get sunburnt. So you do hear these statements from time to time, and somewhere, especially when you're that young, it does hit you somewhere mentally, or it leaves an imprint somewhere subconsciously, and does affect you. It's only now when you're a little older that you realize that that did happen to me.
So I like this thought that there is definitely some undercurrent or some amount of resistance that is there, but when a woman is pushed, she's kind of taking that fuel and moving to the next level. So this is on the field. What about the people around you, like in the society? How did people view you as this badminton player? Now obviously I'm sure a lot of people want to know you but back then when the journey started for you, how did people view you?
So there was, I would say, in terms of family support, it was always, you have a goal, we're there to support you. But there was also this, I would say, this school of thought that, you're going to be an athlete till the age of 28, 29, then you're going to get married and you have to, you have to get on with life. So, what are you going to do after sport? I mean, this question is something that probably affects, the other gender as well. But it was extremely important that we had something planned during our playing career to keep, like a post athletic career ready.
But don't you think the pressure for this will be more on the man, since he's expected to be the provider? He needs to have a stable source of income. So how does that play out for men and women?
So like I said, it's equally something that the guys have to deal with. But as a girl, I mean, I think guys somewhere tend to get away with it, or in terms of the opportunities, whether it's getting into coaching or, girls need to have something skill-based that they're good at, that they're proficient at, which they can take up after quitting. Plus, there's an added, pressure that you are going to have to, look after the family and, be a little more homebound. So, that's kind of you do hear these statements from time to time. That's basically. So I would say it's purely mental. It because it does come from seniors. It does come from extended family. That how much longer are you going to play? When you're going to actually settle down? When so you're expected to take that call by the age of 25. When you can actually push for the next 4-5 years, which is the leeway that guys get. They play till 33, 34, and then maybe get into other professions. But for a girl, you have to take that call very early on. So making that, should I quit sport and get on with life, or should I, say you've had an injury, like in my case, I was 23 and I had quite a serious
I wanted
injury.
to explore that. So what happened when the injury happened?
Yeah.
What really happened to Tanvi Lad?
So it was actually at a point where I was ranked 49 in the world, and the number 3 ranking wise as a women's singles player. And I had a goal of trying to maybe make it to the Olympics in 2020, which the qualification period starts 2 years before. So you have to kind of work backwards. So I decided to move to England, I was going to be based at a sports university and do my masters, and also play the European circuit, because I would be closer to all the European countries and compete more actively. And the goal was to kind of break into the top 20 ranking wise, and then try my best at qualifying. So it started off really well, and I went there, won a few tournaments, and then I tore my patella tendon.
And then life happened.
So, I mean, the silver lining, which we always look for, was that I got my degree, I got my master's degree, but I had to come back midway through the course, have surgery. It threw my ranking completely off track, because I plummeted 200 places ranking wise. I was out of the race completely. And again, the conversations started when I was rehabbing. I was should I use my degree and get on with life, do other things, pursue. I mean, you've done what you had to in the sport. Now maybe look ahead. I was 24 that time. So for me to actually make the call of getting through that whole rehab process.
How long was it?
It was 9 months.
Wow. Okay.
9 months off the court completely, and then you start step by step. Every movement is calculated, every move in the gym is calculated, and then you actually need to get back to competing, get your badminton brain ticking again, which is takes another 3 to 4 months. So it's a year and a half of getting back on track. And of course, your rankings are out. So you have to start from all the small tournaments again and build your way back step by step. So for me to actually make that decision of trying my, giving my second innings a shot, again, I had to break a lot of stereotypes, a lot of, I had to have my way, be a bit rebellious, I would say. But I was adamant about doing it, because there was something about the sport that brought me back to it. And I believe that I do have a lot more left in me. I didn't want to just quit on a very sorry note, saying that, I got injured and life happened and it forced me out. When I quit, it will be when I decide I want to quit.
Wow, what a lovely thought. And I'm sure you have like a lot to offer, and we have a lot to explore. So, when you were talking about this entire time that is set for a woman, a timeline that's set, कि 25 के बाद अब और क्या करना है types. So, this, I actually call it the Cinderella Curfew. So a woman's constantly going through it, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whether it is what time you come back home, or what time you get married, or when you're going to have children, all of that. So this is an interesting perspective that for women athletes, there's actually a curfew. That what after this? So what are your plans? You're already 27, from what I know, and you've decided to sort of just come back, reinvent yourself. So what's the plan now, Tanvi?
Before I jump into answering that, talking of curfew, so I would like to add to one of the questions we spoke about before. So back at the National Center, the girls had curfew.
What kind of curfew?
So Monday to Saturday, we were not allowed to leave the academy. And on Sundays, we had to be back by 6 p.m. Whereas the guys, when you're training, first of all, when you're training hard, you may want to go out and have dinner sometimes. You may, that's pretty much what you're asking for. You're not asking to go out on, go out and party. But of course, being a guy, you do get to take those liberties.
There's more privilege there.
There is more privilege, and from a security perspective, there is, you can.
There's a natural privilege.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whereas with girls, you are, you do have curfew, or you have to be, your whereabouts have to be known, which is understandable. Given that we're in India, it is understandable, but yeah, that's another thing that we as girls, and that's something we were not used to back home. There was no, yes, we were always answerable to our parents about our whereabouts, but there was no curfew that on a Saturday or a Sunday you have to be back by 6 p.m. and then you're literally in that place where you are Monday to Saturday, 24 hours a day. So that was quite tough.
And that was 4.5 years of curfew for you.
Yes.
In fact, Tanvi, I want to ask you another question. So you have the players and then you have the support staff. How many women are actually there in this support staff?
Yeah, that's something I wanted to touch upon as well. So we are constantly, our entire team, whether it's coaches, whether it's physios, whether it's trainers, it's predominantly they're males. So in fact, I watched a documentary on Netflix called the A Athlete, I think it was.
Okay.
I've forgotten the name, but yeah, I think it was the A Athlete. Athlete A on Netflix, and it was basically about the US athletics team, and how this team doctor, team physio, whatever you may call him, was silently kind of molesting the girls without them, and these are all 14, 15, 16-year-old girls who probably didn't know what was even happening, and it was being done in a very subtle way. So it's something that girls don't talk about, but I think it's really important to bring for girls to be aware of the fact, because like I said, your team is predominantly you very very rarely have a female physio traveling with you or a female manager traveling with you. To actually understand, the female body is different. The female mind works very differently.
Yeah.
Emotions are different. So it's very hard to sometimes connect on those levels with.
Yeah, I'm kind of just thinking, you probably have got your first day of periods.
Yeah.
And you're on the court, and you probably need someone who'd understand that a little bit more.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's like you said, the ratio is totally skewed. I mean, there's no you probably have one female physio and 10 male physios. So it is, but it's something I think I would like to put out there, that young girls need to be aware of what is treatment versus crossing the line. And there need to be probably certain rules that are in place where either there's a parent or a senior who's always in the room at that point, because you're being treated, you're wearing short clothes because you're training, you're a sportsman. So that general awareness amongst young girls needs to be there. They need to be educated early on. So that looking back, they don't it's something that I was a victim of this, that shouldn't come in at all ever. That's something that will probably scar a girl for life, which is I think there needs to be a lot of awareness, a lot of education early on. And of course, yes, the percentage of female support staff definitely needs to go up, because emotionally, mentally, only another girl or only another female can understand you as well.
In fact, when you were talking about the documentary, I was kind of thinking that if this documentary is from the US, the situation looks like the situation is pretty much the same there.
Yeah,
But
totally.
you've traveled quite, you've actually traveled for tournaments internationally. Have you seen stereotypes there as well, as far as men and women are concerned in badminton?
Um, Not really. I mean, in terms of course, it's a lot more liberal, I would say, the European countries or in the US. On the face of it, I mean, this is all on the face of it. It's what we get to see. Um, the stereotypes in terms of the way you dress, which is something that as Indians we do have to deal with quite a lot. You're judged constantly for the way you dress, the color of your skin.
Yeah, in fact, I was just wondering if there are some girls who probably can't enter the sport because there's a short skirt. I mean, I don't know. Am I over exaggerating this in my head, or does this happen at times?
Not really in terms of entering the sport, but you would be probably judged for the way you dress, for sure. You are always judged for the way you dress, for the way you speak, the color of your skin, especially in India. So when you say, as Europeans or as other the US or those stereotypes are definitely not there. But as Indians, we do have to deal with it for sure.
Interesting. So we were talking about what Tanvi Lad has in store for her future, and we've actually digressed into interesting conversation. That's what happens when two podcasters talk to each other. So we're also going to talk about your podcast, by the way. I want to know more about the Millennial Athlete and how many millennial women athletes are there right now in the system. But first, let's talk about the question we missed. We don't want to miss it twice. So what's in store for the future?
Yeah. So as planned, I mean, like I mentioned, the second innings was me coming out of injury and trying to rebuild my ranking and give the future a shot. That's basically how it started. And then of course COVID happened and threw everyone's plans off track. So a teammate and I have been wanting to host a chat show or something on those lines for a while now, and one day I randomly pick up the phone and say Shlok, let's do something. We both have a lot of free time during the lockdown, so why don't we do something? And we said, okay, let's give it a shot. So we started reaching out to our fellow teammates or across different sports. We contacted Rohan Bopanna, Saurav Gosal. So we covered the whole spectrum: tennis, squash, swimming, badminton. And it turned out to be really, really candid and fun, and it became like an athlete to athlete kind of chat. And and that's how the Millennial Athlete was born. I mean, we chatted about all things millennial, although a lot of the athletes were seniors and had achieved the Arjuna Award or other national awards. They're all stalwarts in their own sport, but they are dealing with millennial issues today. They're competing against millennials. So it was a very, very interesting it was very interesting to chat with them and understand their perspectives, and that's how it all started. And we got such a good response from the sporting fraternity that we decided to do a season 2, and then of course got in touch with IVM, and that's how the Millennial Athlete season 2 was born. And extremely excited about this aspect of my journey or my story, you may call it.
In fact, I was just thinking, badminton is quite a fast sport, and Tanvi is super fast. She's already on season 2 of the Millennial Athlete. That's a true mark of a badminton player. So tell me something, when you're talking about millennial athletes, what's really happening to women athletes today?
In terms of, there are stereotypes around millennials all the time. They're on their phones too much, or we tend to get bored easily, or we're on social media an awful lot. So I think
you're not very hardworking, and this is stereotype. Yeah, I don't believe that at all. But you don't take things seriously. It's difficult to pin down a millennial. Yeah, you're right. These are absolute stereotypes. We've forgotten that they're a different breed. They're human beings in their own unique ways with unique talents.
Yeah. But one thing I've noticed about millennial girls today is that they're extremely independent, and they're extremely, they have this sort of cockiness, but in a good way, about their individuality. or about their unique personality. And whether it's voicing their opinions on social media, or they won't take things lying down. So if they're told by a coach, or especially if it's coming from a male, if something derogatory, or it's something where you're kind of put in your place, I would see girls today really fighting back. And and that's something that I admire, because I think it comes somewhere from the sport honing that in you, where you are taught to fight back and not take things lying down. But I'm seeing that a lot in young girls, and they are extremely confident about themselves as individuals, and as a unique personality. So whether it's the way they like to dress, or it's their opinions, or it's the way they want to train, if they will not just follow a program because it's been set by the coach. That's a very orthodox way. And I would say maybe even a generation before mine, where there was a lot more respect given to the system, and you have to follow, you have to toe the line, and those were the principles,
the respect for hierarchy.
The respect for hierarchy, absolutely. And girls today, I think, are challenging that. It's a healthy sign. They sometimes demand explanations as to why are we training a particular way, and I want to work on this. Can this be included in the training schedule? So I see them being a lot more vocal. I see them, or for instance, there was this thing that girls about the length of our shorts. We, I mean, when we spoke to Jwala Gutta on season 1 of the Millennial Athlete, she did mention that she was one of the first women's badminton players to start wearing a skirt, and she was criticized for it. She was, she's not focused. Jwala wants to do her nails. She's, she colors her hair. She wears skirts. She had to face those stereotypes, and she was very vocal about it. But of course, Jwala being Jwala, was couldn't care less about what the world thought of her, or what the world criticized her about. She did what she wanted to do, and I see that increasingly amongst the millennial girls today, which is a heartening sign.
In fact, I had this question as the last segment of the show. Why is it that women athletes kind of appear more like in the way they dress up, in their demeanor? They're mostly like their male counterparts. You wouldn't see them wearing too much makeup if they want to, or rather any makeup for that matter. That is missing. That femininity is missing. Is that obvious? Is that forced upon? Is that a culture? What is it?
So there are two ways of looking at this. I mean, if you see, I think tennis is one sport where the glamour and sport is kind of synonymous, and it's encouraged. You do see a new kitting for every Grand Slam. You do see, Serena Williams is a stark personality. She's different from a Kvitova, or even from her sister for that matter. She is. So I absolutely love that raw individuality that each of these players have, and they preserve it, and it does transfer on court as well. You do see each of them believing that they are a different individual, a different personality, and that transfers onto court, which is very, very, I mean, as a fan, I'm an absolute fan of Serena Williams for her sheer but in other sports, and I'm saying in mainly Asian dominated sports, you do see a lot of because of the culture, we're taught to follow the system, always toe the line. There's a lot of suppression I see amongst girls in general. So you tend to, follow the herd. You're afraid to do something that you want to do. You suppress that, and it's something I think to do with the Asian culture.
Yeah.
So if you see, if everyone's doing it, I will do it, but I will not do something out of the box. Which is why that suppression transfers onto court again. It hits your self-belief. It hits you mentally. And even when probably you're playing a higher ranked player, and you're you need that extra bit of guts within you to surf you're somewhere going to suppress, you're going to believe that, no, I'm inferior.
Right.
You're going to, so that does transfer on court, and I don't see that as a healthy sign at all. I think sport in general, especially in an individual sport, you need to hone that individuality, because every player is unique. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and they do have their unique personality, which needs to be, at least preserved, if not encouraged and developed. It needs to be preserved because it is going to transfer onto court, and sport does have that mental angle to it, whether it's self-belief, whether it's self-esteem, it does transfer onto court. So I think it's really important to nurture that.
Yeah. It's quite interesting because I remember I'd done a show with a bodybuilding champion, and she spoke to me about this bikini round. And she's like, excuse me, we're weightlifters, but I still have to worry about how my hair is looking and skin is okay. And, I need to have the right makeup on. So ek taraf, we have those pressures on in one part of the sport. And then there is the sport here where we're not allowing women to express their individuality. What
Absolutely.
a conversation.
I think even in strength sports, for instance, you're lifting heavy, you're going to have big muscles, and, you're going to have bigger legs, and you're not going to be skinny, and sometimes you are judged for that. The body size, that's another thing. In fact, I see amongst young girls, body size, you call it dysmorphia. They're so conscious of body size, and as athletes, sometimes you are doing things that guys do. You are lifting weights, you are eating like them, so you are going to look, you're not going to be a typical skinny girl. So that is something I see young girls having to deal with a lot, body image issues. So it's there's a lot that goes into being a female athlete.
I can so imagine that. Yeah, must
and
be
it's
crazy.
not talked about. It's not talked about because these are hushed. These topics are hushed, but it's a truth. It's a hard fact that it does exist. So,
in fact, I'm thinking about the conversation that a woman athlete has at home, especially when it comes to marriage and things like that, right? So how easy is it for a woman to find a prospective groom in the Indian setup if there's a woman athlete? What's the situation like for her? For her?
From what I've seen, at least in the badminton fraternity, is that you very very often the men's singles or the men's players and the women's players kind of I found them I've seen a lot of it. Within the fraternity
internally shaadi ho jati.
So it's I think it just goes by the sheer amount of time that they're spending together, that you do see a lot of couples in the fraternity itself. But of course there's a fair share of those who've not, and who wanted to always marry outside the circle and find life partners who don't do sport. So I mean, given the amount of time and energy that's invested in the sport and in what we do, there's very little time to actually interact with another set of people outside the fraternity. So it's not easy. I mean, it's definitely not easy, but I've seen a lot of my seniors who've managed to find perspective and gone on.
But this is a different debate. You're talking about finding the time to find somebody, which could also be the case for a male athlete. But I'm talking about the general perception. How open are Indian men? And I hate generalization. We're just discussing for the sake of a healthy debate. How open is the Indian mentality, the patriarchal mentality, to accept a woman athlete as the bahu of the house, or as a wife?
So I think, I mean, of course, I can't generalize here. I wouldn't want to generalize, but I think from what I've seen, it's pretty much that once you're you get married and you decide to settle down, it's time to quit the sport and take on other roles and responsibilities in the house, or become more homebound, and your responsibilities change and you probably become more subservient than you were. That's something that I've seen and I have resented quite a bit.
And that also reminds me of that scene from the movie Chak De India, where he says, "Tum vice captain Indian cricket team ki biwi banne wali ho." And she says, "Nahi, वो नहीं, कुछ हो ना हो, लेकिन मैं वहाँ से ताली बजाते हुए जरूर आऊंगी." So I can imagine that must be a difficult situation.
But I
there's
think
so
times
much.
are changing. I mean, guys too
I'm sure.
are increasingly proud of their partners being, achievers, and especially now with sport getting so much of limelight and with leagues coming up so well. I think times are changing, which is healthy.
Yeah, but I definitely want to see a league only for women, which I think is missing, right? So whether you have the Kabaddi League or you have the football or the cricket, it's all men.
It's
so
male dominated, absolutely.
Hope to see more women on the screen as well.
Yeah.
Tanvi, I've had a great conversation, and this one was a little difficult for me. I am going to confess, I was a little nervous about this one because I never participated in sports. I grew up with bronchitic asthma. And, for me, it was always about debates and elocutions, and I was a high flyer in school, but no sports. So I soch rahi thi, what is a conversation that I'm going to have with Tanvi? But Tanvi, you've done such a fab job. I think we've sort of explored every possible stereotype with athletes. So I've had a great time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been a fun conversation because these are things that we don't chat about. I train with only guys. I compete with only guys, so it's very rarely that I get to chat about these kind of issues unless I catch up with a female teammate but we're generally in different cities and it doesn't really happen. So
you can just pick up the phone, call me, and I can talk to you for hours about this. Right.
Yeah,
so that is also a fellow IVMer on the show with me. Please do check out Tanvi Lad's show. It's called The Millennial Athlete. It's already hit season 2. Do find it on the IVM podcast app or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you, Tanvi, once again for joining us, and wish you good luck with season 2.
Thank you so much. And yes, guys, if you have the Millennial Athlete is now live, and if you have anything that you would like me and my co-host Shlok to chat about, anything sport, be it mental health, nutrition, or anything specific that you have for our stalwart guests, please do write to us on Instagram. My Instagram
how do people find you? Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, I'm at Tanvi Lad 93 on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay, great. So you can pretty much find me everywhere. I'm Almas Virani. That's the name I go by on Facebook. Almas Virani _1111 on Instagram. Almas Virani 11 on Twitter. I'm a speaker, author, coach, change maker, and I also have a campaign on change.org where I'm asking a leading diaper company to include the father's image on the diaper wrapper. If you truly believe in this cause, you want more fathers to get recognized for the work that they're doing, which they should be doing anyway, and you want to encourage more fathers that are not changing diapers, please go to the petition and sign the petition, www.change.org/PapaPampers2. With this is me, Almas, signing off, and I'm going to be back with yet another episode where we smash gender stereotypes only on Beyond Cliché. Stay safe, stay happy. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. What a week we had this week. We had so much crossover, so many great guests. I don't even know where to start. Okay, yeah, I do know where to start. Let's start with Uncle Please Sit. Uncle Please Sit, Joel and Tushar had Hamsini Hariharan. Hamsini hosts a show called States of Anarchy with their network. She is a China expert, and they discussed the India-China relationship. Really fascinating conversation. Cyrus had 2 conversations this week instead of our normal Thursday Cock and Bull. Great conversations, both of them. We'll be back with our regular Cock and Bull next week. But this week, you could definitely check out the conversation he had with Varun Grover. Really fascinating stuff. And Nikhil Taneja, who was the founder of Yuva and the creative director for the India Film Project Festival, which is going on this weekend. He was on the show as well. Cyrus was also on Advertising is Dead this weekend with Varun Dugirala. Cyrus and Varun discussed Cyrus's intent on randomness. Ranveer Brar guested on Gauri Devi Dayal show. This rounds on me. Another amazing conversation over there. Priyanka Khimani, one of the best IP lawyers in this country, was on Storytellers and Storysellers for a fascinating conversation. Definitely do check that out. And finally, I wanted to congratulate Zarina Poonawala for her 100th episode. She had Ashish Vidyarthi as a guest on that. If you have not been listening to the Empowering series, please do. It's one of the great shows out there. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one, or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are two passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset and everything sport.
So tune in to the Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.
Advertising is dead. Yep, you heard me right. Advertising is dead. We're all in the content business now. Let's not call it news, TV, radio, etc., etc. It's all content, and we're in the middle of this weirdly exciting phase where all the borders and lines that have been drawn over decades has been swept away by this lovely thing called the internet. We're a show where we don't dwell on just the stuff that is now, but rather the wider stuff about advertising, media, content, and the whole goddamn circus surrounding it. Tune in every Tuesday for our weekly unboxing of the mystery box we used to call advertising. I'm Varun Dugirala, co-founder and content chief at The Glitch, and this is my new podcast, Advertising is Dead.